Mullinger's Weekly Ramble.
Hello, my friends. It is Wednesday, the 30th of April, 2025, and it is, of course, time for episode 53 of Mullinger's Weekly Ramble. And what do you want to talk about? You can't tell me, because it's a one-sided conversation with one lunatic sitting at his desk at 6:15 in the morning, singing even though he can't sing. And I know this isn't really singing. So, although I have heard worse music coming out of my children's headphones lately, it's funny when you reach that age where I want to be called Dad, but I have to be honest that most of the music I'm hearing, I'm not going to say the words that my parents used to say and they used to say that their parents used to say, but it's not music. Well, sorry, it is music. It's not good music, in my opinion, of course. So, thank you all for being here. If you are here, I don't know. I could be in your ears right now. I could not be. This is the wonderful thing about this as an art form. It's in many ways is podcasting the absolute opposite of stand-up. In some ways, it is. People often complain about other art forms. Stand-ups often complain when they go into TV. Like, oh, it's so annoying. You have an idea, you've got to wait months for approval, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh, yeah, poor old you. Welcome to the real world. And of course, there is the fun immediacy of stand-up. But let's talk about stand-up. Why not? I'm assuming if you listen to this podcast, you have some vague interest in stand-up. So, very quickly from the top, we're going to talk about today the Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn fight on Saturday. We're going to talk about the rain on Saturday because, hey, this may as well be a weather report. I wonder, does Cindy Day do a podcast? If she did, it would be the most listened to podcast. There's one for you, John and Reese. Cindy Day needs to do a podcast. Anyway, coming up with ideas at 6:17 in the morning. We've lost 2 minutes. We'll be talking about my Saint John High show on Saturday night, the highs and the lows and the confusions with that. And I put some other stuff I've watched this week. Brett Goldstein's new stand-up special. Brett Goldstein, of course, plays a much-loved character. Is it Roy on Ted Lasso? He's a comedian I knew back in London who has obviously gone on to be one of the most successful British exports since, Ricky Gervais, oddly not cancelled, and Russell Brand, definitely cancelled. Well, not cancelled. It's annoying when someone refers to someone as being cancelled when they're actually just being investigated for sexual assault. That's not cancelled. That's being arrested. That's being rightly held to account. Here's a question for you. I think we talked about cancellation before. There is this age-old debate. Has anyone ever actually been cancelled? Like, given what the likes of, Dave Chappelle, Ricky Gervais, Jimmy Carr say on stage, is there any evidence of a performer? And to be fair, I should clarify, there are some academics that have been cancelled for holding opinions that were not popular 2 years ago. But is there any evidence? You tell me. Is there any evidence of a comedian being cancelled? You look at Tony Hinchcliffe. People have tried to cancel Tony Hinchcliffe after the Trump thing, but they haven't. I was speaking of people who in theory would be cancelled if cancellation was actually a thing. The other stand-up special I watched yesterday morning, funnily enough, because it was actually the perfect length. And again, this special won't be for every. My goodness. I thought my voice was sounding great for 6:19 in the morning. By the way, those of you that are listening to this thinking, my goodness, James, we just had a podcast 2 days ago. Why is there another podcast already? You're going absolutely mental. Last week's podcast did go up a tiny bit late due to the fact that Reese and John are currently the busiest men in Atlantic Canadian entertainment, and they are organising possibly one of the biggest and most important podcasting conferences ever in Canada. That's taking place in Nova Scotia in June. If you'd like further details of it, there'll be a link in the bio below. There'll also be a piece on it in the next issue of the Maritime Radio, which the deadline's coming up. It doesn't feel like I'm complaining about the deadline coming up all the time. I am. That's why I am. It's every 3 months, but it does creep up. Basically, in a week, I've got to have it finished. I am halfway through I can tell you what it is. It's actually our first ever travel special, and it's fast becoming a travel and food special. We have two amazing food contributors, Chef Michael Smith, my dear friend you all know from In at Bay Fortune on PEI, and the new head chef at the Algonquin, a much lauded, glittering CV. Chef Prasanna Kumar, who has been there for a few months now, is shaking things up, bringing, doing all the classics at the Algonquin while also bringing some fine dining elements. He has done some amazing egg-based recipes for us, which we went to the Algonquin to photograph a few weeks ago. I can tell you this. I haven't told anyone else this. This is what else is in the mag. There's a big feature on the Kingston Peninsula. There's a big feature on, connected to that, a great feature by my friend Heather McLean-Reid about Yip Cider and the Mackay family and the creation of Yip Cider. And by the way, my interview with Emily Bars from CBC which we did at Yip Cider 2 weeks ago, is now, I'm not sure if any of you heard it last week when it was live, but it is now available online. Of course, I can't post it on the social medias because for some reason, maybe the new Canadian government will fix that problem of not being able to share the news, being the only country in the world that doesn't allow the news to be shared on the Facebooks. Maybe the new Prime Minister will fix that. Don't want to talk politics. Sorry, I've started about 3 things that I haven't finished. I'll come back to all of them. I hope I should take notes while I'm talking, shouldn't I? That's what I would do. When I'm successful, I'll have someone like that. Joe Rogan has someone taking notes, doesn't he? No, Googling stuff for him. That's right. Yeah, someone says, "Hey, did you see that cat riding a bike video?" And Joe goes, "Get it up. And then they laugh and they go, "Ha, ha, ha, get it up." And then they play the cat video and they go, "Ha, ha, ha, there's the cat video." And then you're listening and you kind of think, I can't see the cat video because this is a podcast. And I know you basically also live stream on YouTube, but most of your listeners aren't watching, so don't know what that was. Anyway, I digress. Surprise, surprise. It's funny, it happens a lot on Kill Tony, a lot of visual gags on Kill Tony that you don't hear in the podcast, and then Tony doesn't then try and explain for you. Okay, what was I banging on about? Going back, last week's podcast was late, but this one is now here. What's in the mag? I've done a feature on Graham and Anne and an interview with lovely Ali, who owns Turning Tide Cottages. What else is in the issue? A feature on Glass Roots, the awesome glass blowing art gallery, and essentially, what would you call it? Studio in Uptown Saint John. What else is in the issue? Well, I can't remember. Brandon Hicks has done an incredible thing, incredible graphic novel of his visit to meet the Seal Island puffins. What else? My brain's gone blank. The whole mag. Anyway, well, I guess that doesn't matter. You don't care. It's not out for a few weeks. I'll be telling you all about it when it. Oh yeah, I was going to say Tim, the stand-up special I started to talk about. Forgive me. Can I have a sip of coffee? Do you mind? I mean, I'm sure you're all having a coffee now. 6:42, by the way, now. And this is going up today, by the way. So whatever you're listening to today, if you're listening to this today, it is today. Today is today. Oh, tonight I'm doing a fundraiser for the Trinity Anglican Church, organised by my friend Jackie Oland. And it's taking place at the Union Club, and it is myself and Archbishop David and Marshall Button in conversation about, I believe, the business of comedy, the boundaries of comedy, and basically the making a living as a comedian. And really nothing sums up the reality of doing stand-up at the bottom rung of the ladder where I'm at than, I guess, my last few days where, I had 5 nights on the trot, 5 gigs on the trot, 5 nights on the trot, a few of them warm-up shows. I'll go through all the shows in a bit, a couple of corporates, one hosting job, and then obviously the big show at Saint John Youth, which, by the way, thank you to everyone who came out to it. Julie, I know you listen. Thank you for being there in the front row. Caitlin, thank you for being there in the front row. Lots of people in the front row oddly bought tickets on the first day, but then didn't show up, possibly because of the weather. I have since discovered that lots of people didn't show up or couldn't make it due to the weather. So I have posted this on Facebook, but I will shout it out here too. If you bought tickets for my show on Saturday night at Saint John High, but were unable to attend due to the catastrophic rain and all-round awful weather conditions, please email me, jamesmullinger@gmail.com. That's my personal email address, and I would love to gift you free tickets for another upcoming show. And trust me, I'm doing millions of them. So you're not going to miss out. And so yeah, just shoot me a message if you missed the show. That was awful weather. It's funny how you always, you worry about those things in winter, like a lot, you worry about that in January, February, will shows get cancelled because of weather. On a day of a show, often I'm driving in a snowstorm, my phone's blowing up because people are going, is it cancelled because of the weather? Is it cancelled because of the weather? And it's never cancelled because of the weather. Just heads up. I never, I'm not saying don't be safe. And if you can't come, I'll always furnish you with tickets for another show or whatever I can do. But I will always be there, even if it means performing to two people. Luckily, more than two did show up, and I believe we sold 800 and something tickets, and over 700 people showed up. So there's possibly up to 100 that were unable to attend, and it was bloody awful rain. Yeah, it's funny. You expect that in January, February. Don't expect it in April. Although that weekend in April, this weekend just gone in April is the weekend that I generally do. I don't know if it's superstition or whatever else, but it's the weekend that I do. I've done big shows a lot on that date. For example, 9 years ago, Saturday. 9 years ago, this past weekend was my first Harbour Station show. 8 years ago was hosting ECMAs at Harbour Station. 7 years ago was doing Harbour Station the second time. So basically that year, every year I've done something. And then I think for the last 3 years, I've done the Imperial Theatre that weekend. So it's often a bad time for rain and floods. Anyway, that was the first time it's kind of had a really, really adverse. I remember the week after the second Harbour Station show, I was out helping a lot of people's flooding. I remember being at my friend Gail and Tim's, who are Tyler Warren Ellis's wonderful mum and dad, helping them at their house and some other. Anyway, Tim Dillon was what I was trying to say, was that I watched his stand-up special yesterday morning, perfect length before work. Oi, that's what she said. And it's called I'm Your Mother. And I hadn't seen much of Tim Dillon. I obviously heard him on podcasts, or you see these clips popping up on the reels, often quite annoyingly, and which I'm sure just trying to go about your day, and then reels are popping up of some idiot on a ferry from Graham and Anne, flying about in the weather or munching on a Tim Hortons. The amount of people that have come up to me saying that they watched that Tim Hortons sausage breakfast wrap video and hadn't had one before and now tried it and are now addicted to them. So I apologize for being the evil pusher who has got all those people addicted to Tim Hortons sausage breakfast wraps. But I will say, Tim Hortons, if you're listening, yes, I'm available for all sponsorships. As you know, I am very critical of, these millionaire comedians and podcasters packing their podcasts with just greed, and then the fact that we pay for streaming networks destroy network TV because they tempt us with the allure of no ads, and now you pay a subscription and now these ads are popping. I kind of point out that what's really bad is that at least with TV, with terrestrial TV, network TV, whatever you want to call it, the shows were constructed around the fact that if it was a 27-minute show, that at the 13-minute mark, there'd need to be some ads. If it's an hour-long show, it was going to be 47 minutes, and there would be ads at certain points. So whether it be CSI or SWAT or whatever, Dallas, Dynasty, whatever show, every TV show in history, they would plan out the commercial break moments, possibly with a cliffhanger. becoming increasingly frustrating is yet again, like everything else in the world, we're going completely backwards because these idiots, these scumbags, Bezos and that dick at Netflix, can't remember his name, the one that loves transphobic comedy, Teddy Sarandos. The way the ads pop up is just completely random, kind of like on the YouTubes. In actual fact, the YouTubes is slightly less frustrating. And so you'll be watching something and just be mid-scene, mid-sentence, then the ads will come, and sometimes it says there's 4 ads to go, and 2 ads. I mean, it's just awful. Anyway, my point is this: I hate these. Well, especially as you know, detest people flogging gambling apps and things, flogging anything that people can get. Let's be a hypocrite. I was about to say flogging anything that people can get addicted to. Here's me trying to flog Tim Hortons sausage wraps, knowing full well that I am a full-blown junkie. And everyone that everyone that's told me they've tried one has also become addicted. That's actually quite bad. When you. Do you ever? I don't think anyone. When I was 14 and kind of tried cigarettes for the first time, I don't think anyone else I ever gave one to, like in subsequent, who said, I want to try it, and I maybe very wrongly gave it to. I thank goodness none of them have continued to become smokers. But weirdly, like I can literally, I mean, again, you can't blame anyone if anything. I remember there was a gentleman called Joe Thompson at my school who was actually very not cool, but we thought he was cool. Had an undercut haircut, and he got held back. He didn't, and again, now with the benefit of hindsight, I'm able to say maybe he had learning difficulties, but he got held back a year to our year. But I mean, basically because he spent all of his time beating the shit out of people and not turning up to class. But equally, with a frame of 2025, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say maybe he had problems, although he was an absolute jerk to me. But again, maybe maybe there was a reason for that in his past. Isn't that funny now that we are that? I guess it's nice. We give everyone the benefit of the doubt. This guy was absolutely vile to me for many, many years. I still have nightmares about some of the things he did. I shouldn't have named him. That was wrong. I didn't know I was going down this path. But you forgive it. You go, well, maybe didn't like the taste of his sandwich that morning. Okay. Tim Dillon it's very hard to get to. It's taken 17 minutes to. Tim Dillon's "I'm Your Mother." So I'd seen clips of him, watched it. Of course, it at first seems like this. I mean, it is funny, the shock comedy now, isn't it? Like how there are the beats they all have to hit. However, he does hit them quite well. Of course, he's going to do the trans thing. He does take an interesting angle. Interestingly, also, Ari Schaefer in the special American Sweetheart, I think it's called, also takes an interesting and actually agreeable liberal angle, but don't go into it thinking you're going to find they're both full of things that could basically offend anyone or no one, depending on your comedy tastes. It's funny how much I worry about offence. So Saturday night, I had my show at Saint John High. Anyway, point being, the Tim Dillon stand-up special is nice and short, 40 minutes. It's filmed inside Joe Rogan's Comedy Mothership Club, and it got me thinking, I feel like I'm going to film my next special in a club. I'm possibly thinking that wonderful Halifax Live Club that I had those basically two of the best shows I've had in a long time at, or possibly Comic Sutra in Fredericton, where I had a wonderful 3 shows. Actually, also earlier this year. I feel like here's what I felt was missing on Saturday night, being back in a big 900-seat theatre, having had, which I haven't mentioned this yet. So last week, I recorded this on the Thursday. Do you mind if I have another sip of coffee? Is that right? Thank you. My wife hates how I drink coffee, and you might do too. If you do, message me, and I won't. I'll work out how to mute. The only way I can think to mute is to maybe put my hand over the blue snowball. That's high tech. So last week, obviously, I recorded it the morning after the Saint John Regional Hospital Foundation's Innovative Medical Innovators Challenge. Today am actually writing an article on the winners for the next issue of the mag. As I mentioned last week, but I didn't give you the full details. That basically the $500,000 winner of the David Elias CHS Healthcare Innovation Award went to. I was talking about molecular. I'm going to explain to you what I was talking about last week. So it went to so the team. It was to basically establish a genetic service in New Brunswick. The team was led by Dr. Doho Atani, who works at Molecular Diagnostics and Cytogenics at the Saint John Regional Hospital. The aim was to enhance local genetic services by reducing reliance on out-of-province labs to cut wait times for genetic testing. Now, do you know what genetic testing does? It basically will give you the heads up, which is possibly not the best sensitive way of putting it, on these diseases such as breast, prostate, and colon cancer. It will give you early signal, and so you can get treatment earlier. So it will literally save lives, save wait time, save everything. So anyway, I'm writing that today. So that's what went down last week, and then I mentioned this last week that the other thing, the other award went to. Well, it was led by the team was led by Dr. Sarah Gander, social pediatrician with New Brunswick's Social Pediatrics. It was essentially to involve an expansion of New Brunswick Social Pediatrics to add a school and health liaison role in 3 St. John's schools that need it, i.e. supporting children facing social or health challenges by providing timely health care, early interventions and community resources. In other words, good is being done. As my friend Shannon Hunter said, this is what happens when vision and generosity meet. So, healthcare challenges are too big for any one organisation to solve alone. Collaboration isn't a luxury anymore; it's a necessity. Absolutely. So, I had that big show, the big event on Wednesday night. A lot of work building up to it. A couple of full days of rehearsals. I wouldn't say stressful, but I would say daunting and very meaningful. Thus, I obviously took a lot of responsibility, a lot of stress upon myself. So obviously on Thursday I had to wake up and go record. I recorded this, and then I went boom. How do I hone the 500 pages of notes I've got down to get my Saint John Saturday night set in check, ready? I had booked the previous week a extra warm-up show at the Hampton Brewing Company on Thursday night, so I could do Hampton on Thursday, Long Bay on Friday, and then hopefully be in tip-top shape by Saturday. I will say that every other year, generally, I do feel I don't feel in tip-top shape, but I kind of am. This time around, I was not, I wouldn't say I was in tip-top shape. With the material, I think possibly it was having all of these other things. I shouldn't have big events and big other things stressing me out the week of a big new 90-minute show, but I couldn't not obviously do the Saint John Regional Hospital Foundation's event. So, and there was various other, I would say, emotional traumas are overdoing it. But last weekend I had a weekend of hate mail. Let's put it that way, a weekend of abuse. So the combination of due to not a misquoting as such, but anyway. If you want to know what that was, I'll happily tell you. Don't want to put it out here, but anyway. So I went in Thursday night into Hampton. Now I had decided at this point, this was a surprise, that my son Hunter was going to open for me. I thought it would be. He does a good job of it. He does a good job of roasting me. I will say he did a phenomenal job. Thursday night we turned up Hampton Brewing Company. It's obviously broad daylight outside. That show had only been on sale for 5 days or something. Amazingly, we sold it out. I went in and it's broad daylight, and I didn't feel it started well. It then got quite lively. At one point, I went into something that I was kind of hesitating at because I thought it was going to be too filthy for this kind of bright room. And there was a lovely, lovely family in front of mum and son and his son's wife or girlfriend there. They were lovely people. But I felt like you really can't, when you're doing material, if you hold back, you lose it. If you hold back because you think it's inappropriate, you lose the crowd. If you hold back because if you're not selling a bit because you think, oh, have they heard it before? You've got to, it has to be sold in full every time. You've got to deliver it with confidence. This is what makes these comedians like Tim Dillon and Ari Schaefer, and again, the Jeselniks of the world. It's what makes that really harsh material sell so well is the ferocity and the power and the confidence with which it is delivered. You can't be holding it. You can't be holding back. Anyway, so at one point I was holding back and I kind of verbalized that, and a woman in the audience, very lovely lady, she kind of chimed in. She's like, he thinks we can't take it. So everyone started cheering, and then they kind of encouraged me, and we went for it, and it did turn into an insanely fun, albeit all over the place, warm-up show. It was one of those warm-up shows, not even warm-up, new material shows. A warm-up show is more when the show is honed and ready, which oddly, I basically had to make that leap from Thursday to Friday, from a freewheeling all over the place. I didn't do this audience suggestions in a pot. I felt like so I basically had to go, I erased all the material. There was a bit I decided that I wanted to redo on Saturday night. If I say redo, basically, it became very clear that Saturday night's audience, due to all the messages I was receiving about it, was, I estimated, and I turned out to be correct, that more than half the audience hadn't seen me before. So that, as you know, that is one of those things that just tortures me, where I'm like, okay, I can come out and do the new stuff, which I know people that have seen me that are coming, who, again, I've been told have seen me 3, 4, 5, sometimes more times. Caitlin, possibly 9, 10 times, would we say? Double figures, Caitlin? I mean, very kind of you. And so trying to balance that with people that haven't seen me before and going, okay, the people that haven't seen me are going to love it if I come out and just do all the, all the classics. Oh, that's funny. Okay, here's a bit I was going to do, but I didn't end up doing. I was going to do a bit where I wrote into AI, tell me a joke in the style of James Mullinger. And here it is. I didn't end up doing this. I was going to read it out. I thought it would be funny, but then I thought it might not be funny, so I didn't. That's how it works. Okay, here's AI's response. Sure, here's a James Mullinger-style joke, taking into account his comedic tone, which often plays with British culture, language, and his own life experiences. Fairly accurate. This is the joke. Shall I try and do it in my real voice, and you can tell me if it's actually funny? It's, I moved to Canada a few years ago, right? I thought I'd escaped the whole British stereotype, but no, turns out I'm just as awkward and apologetic in Canada. I've just swapped the rain for snow. The other day, I accidentally bumped into someone in the street. I said sorry, and the guy replied, sorry? I said, no, I'm sorry. It's like a never-ending Canadian apology off. Annoyingly, there are I guess that's how AI works. There's a couple of aspects to that are not dissimilar to a joke I have about knocking someone off a chair. Underneath, AI has added, listen to this. Okay, this is AI explaining the joke for you. It mixes some cultural quirks with a relatable everyday scenario. Classic James Mullinger. Just when you thought someone as far down the comedy ladder that I'm basically in the gutter, that the ladder is propped up in so other people can trample over my pathetic, unfunny face to the top echelons of the Canadian comedy world. AI says that there are some things that could be considered classic James Mullinger. There was another one that AI threw up that's terrible, but anyway, You ever notice how your parents, when they get older, start repeating themselves? It's like they've got a greatest hits album, and every time you visit, they just drop a new track. Remember when you used to love broccoli? Yeah, Mum, you told me that yesterday and the day before. And in 2007 at Christmas dinner, I don't think I'm ever going to get a signed copy of the album. And in 2007 at Christmas dinner, I don't think I'm ever going to get a signed copy of the album at this rate. Don't get it. Maybe I'm just stupid. Okay, so well, my point is that Hunter was going to open for me. He did a pretty good job on Thursday night, given he hadn't obviously been on stage in a year or since last summer. And there was funny stuff that happened during the Hampton show. People were outside, actually. Here's a sign. This is good for your ego. There's people outside in the garden laughing louder than the audience. I had to open the window and tell the people that were laughing at the volume that I would have liked the audience to be laughing. I had to tell them to shut up. And then they were said that someone was telling animal sex jokes, and that was a moment that was good for the confidence, hearing the bigger laughs. So anyway, it went great. It was one of those work in progress shows that if I didn't have a big show that Saturday night that I needed to be ready for, it would have been phenomenal and a dream. And I must say, I've come to this realization that sorry, this is my point I was trying to get to earlier. I think that there's something that's lost. As Caitlin Dean and I were kind of swapping messages the day after the show, she very kindly came to my Friday night show at Long Bay, which incidentally, this is part of my point, was one of, if not the best Long Bay show I have ever had. The audience was absolutely popping. Now, part of that was Hunter's amazing intro. He had it nailed by them. And often this time of year can be quite tricky because obviously in the first few months at these Long Bay shows, it's pitch black outside, and obviously now it's broad daylight, so you're basically sitting in a parking lot and propped up on a piece of plywood, which are propped up on beer barrels, and it's broad daylight, and it can be a tricky gig. This was off the charts. So many great people were in there. I mentioned Caitlin Dean was there, and my friends Jen and Dwayne were there celebrating their 10th year in a row seeing me since their first date. I'm sure some of you know this story. If you don't know it, you should watch the video of me assisting with their proposal at Tandy's during the COVID. Long and short of it is, for 10 years, Jen and Dwayne have been coming to see me on that. They had their first date to see me at the BMO Theatre. They actually bought the framed ticket on Friday night. Their second date was to see me at Harbour Station. Then every year they come to see me. They're amazing friends who I also love dearly, Sean and Karen. I partied with all four of them actually once at the in the campground at the Sussex Drive-In after a Sussex Driving show, again during the COVID. They were there. Who else was there? And my friend Crystalie Dion, who played Gloria in Ugwag, which was the children's show that I was in, directed by the wonderful Brian Finley. Vicky Newell, who I know from both shows and the Community, and just incredible, beautiful mother of three, I believe now. Amazing, just one of those people in the Community who just every time you see her, you feel happy. She's a joy bringer, and generally I tend to see her either once a year at shows when she comes out with her awesomely fun group of lady friends, and at the Rossaill. Who else was there? Lots of people were there. Oh, my Hunter's friend Sam's parents were there, who moved to Rossaill from Ottawa recently. The amazing Caitlin Dean very, very kindly brought Adam Blanchard, comedian who I hadn't met before, but I heard wonderful things about, and I can't wait to see him live at one of Clive Lucas's Bad Words for a Good Cause shows, which I'm desperate to do. I want to do a show with Josh Costa. Why can't I pronounce Josh Costa Blasquez, Adam, Caitlin, Clive, all those cool people. So, point being that Friday night was just an absolute rip-roaring, ridiculously fun barnstormer, to the extent that I think in my mind Saturday night just couldn't live up. I don't know what happened. I don't know how this was created. Basically, it was just down to the audience. Because not to ever say that it's the audience's fault when it's not good, but for example, when Nancy Regan and her crew came to film, and were lovely, lovely people, the room was kind of dead. not the audience's fault. They might have been intimidated by all the cameras that were there. Also, I think what was different with this Long Bay was I didn't kind of come out of the gate saying, "Hey, I'm recording you and this is new material." I just came out and tried to deliver it. It went tremendously well. Unfortunately, they were also yeah, this was it. The great Gary Spicer was there in the front row with his wonderful girlfriend. Love Gary because he is not only a reminder of home, also incredible entrepreneur, someone that's moved here, created an incredible life for himself in New Brunswick, loves it here. Also, he's just a proper, full-on, genuine, real London geezer, and I miss London geezers, and by geezer I mean lad, bloke, not the geezer. Geezer here means something else. Here I know geezer means old man. In England, geezer just means geezer, lad, boy, geezer. And I love having Gary in the room because Gary can back me up that everything I'm saying about back in the UK is true. Anyway, this audience was so up for anything. I think it gave me possibly a bit too much confidence to do some of the possibly ruder stuff that I probably should have done in such a big room. But hey, it's all comedy, right? So, yes, my point that I'm trying to get to is that I feel like next year my tour is going to be an off-the-cuff, unplanned audience suggestions road tour across Canada in every province, just doing audience suggestions. I feel like that's what I need at this point, 21 years in, because the new material basically that I felt. So here was what I did. Here's what I just landed on. I decided that I was going to mix it up for Saturday night, do about 45 minutes to an hour of new and 30 minutes of older stuff, but I would frame it in a way that it felt fresh to people that heard it before. I basically wanted to please, as I mentioned, the people that had never seen me and the people. So I would say ballsily opened with 45 minutes of new Trump stuff, politics, which I don't normally do. I'm just looking at my notes. Did I do the Bare Funny News speech beat? I can't remember. I have to watch the footage back. Hockey versus soccer, still struggling to make that bit fully work. EV cars, which landed massive on Friday night. This is what I've often talked about. This interesting thing, the shift between bits that work phenomenally well at a new material night, where it's like, oh my God, this is new material he's testing, and this is really funny, to then getting it to work in a theatre and club environment. I had done the EV car bit in the Mermaid Theatre a few weeks ago in Windsor, Nova Scotia. It had gone well. It did go well. I think I just forgot bits. And then I decided to do a bit which I hadn't done for 3 years due to the fact that obviously it's about COVIDs and you don't talk about COVIDs anymore. But it's the Sussex drive-in bit. And I felt it was relevant because it's about New Brunswick resilience, and the New York Times and the Globe and Mail saying that Saint John is screwed because we rely too much on the United States, which isn't true. And I thought that resilience thing would work. So I tested Sussex drive-in story on Friday night. Then asked the audience who had heard it before. Only for Jen and Dwayne had, unsurprisingly, and Caitlin had, and no one else had. So I thought I can do it again. I did it on Saturday night. It landed big. I then did. I didn't want to do all my kind of old stuff. I didn't want to do directions, and I did do ferry boats because there was a reason for it, and that landed big. But I was worried I was underselling it because I feel a bit embarrassed doing it. I did homemade wine just because, again. And then, interesting. Oh, and then obviously I did ADHD, the extended version, which I hadn't done in a big room before. And I did my New Year's Eve diary thing, moving here. And then the big surprise in the end of the show was, which a very much last minute decision. Have I told this? No, I haven't told this story. So basically, 2 weeks ago, I'm in Saint John High with the incredible tech team. And by the way, shout out to the tech team who were phenomenal. Also, massive shout out. And they're all students running the tech, and they were phenomenal and better than a lot of adults, should we say? By the way, Nick Munn, deputy vice principal of Saint John High, has been such a tremendous and kind joy to work with throughout all of this. So if you ever want to do a show at the Saint John, I highly recommend it. They just all worked tirelessly. Anyway, I was in there a couple of weeks ago. They all worked basically tirelessly to make it the success it was. And also, by the way, huge shouts off to everyone from the Centre for Youth, Centre for Youth Care, who were my volunteer ushers for the night. I hope some of you visited their table. I'm doing a huge fundraiser for them in May. Is it next month? I think it's May. Yeah. It's next month. It's May 22nd. I will put the link in the description. Please come. Saint John Helton Training Convention Centre. Me and the Saint John Youth Orchestra. Every cent going towards. So I don't know if you know this. This is what Centre for Youth do, and I will explain it more detail. But there are obviously they've had youth homes here in the Saint John area for 50 years, whatever. But there's this huge gap for when a youth is no longer a youth, but also doesn't then have, like, we know how impossible it is to get in the housing market for people with, wealthy families. They can't, these kids can't even get on the housing market. So there's been a huge problem, like a gap in the system, whereby people will leave a youth care home and then basically gravitate very quickly into homelessness, because there isn't they are building a home that is the next gap. And this fundraiser is called Raise the Roof, because we're going to raise the roof of this project. What's my point? Okay, I've got a few tangents. So yes, thanks and thank you to my sister-in-law Judy Petition for and her amazing girlfriend Sheila for facilitating that, and everyone, Karen and Andrew at Centre for Youth and all the team. It was honestly, they made the night a success, and especially considering the torrential rain outside. What's my point? I was there a few weeks ago for a rehearsal with Mr. Munn, and I hear singing from behind the curtain. Now, I assume it's one of my favourite songs, Defying Gravity from Wicked, is being sung. And it is just it's like cross between Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey and Celine Dion. Like, it's off the charts great. So I obviously assume, wow, this must be an a cappella recording that someone is playing on an extremely good speaker system and possibly vinyl record of Cynthia Erivo, amazing Cynthia Erivo, who incidentally went to school, acting school, like a few streets over from where Pamela and I used to live in South London. And I go, where's that sound coming from? Where can I get that audio? I love that song, and it sounds like Cynthia Erivo singing it. And Mr. Munn goes, no, it's not Cynthia Erivo, that's Jamelia. She's a student here. I'm like, what? And I go around, and there's this girl is just like phenomenal talent, is belting out Defying Gravity absolutely majestically. So I have this idea, like, why don't we? I'm like, I've got to get this girl on the stage. I mean, just selfishly, I want to hear her sing this. So the approach was made obviously through the school. I made the question through the school. Would someone, and Nick put me in touch with the choir master, Patricia Gallagher, who I now discover, having shared a stage with her and posted about her absolute genius. I've received so many messages from people who have been in her choir over the years. I believe she's been there, well over a decade, I think, because someone sent me a picture of them in her choir. Tons of people have sent me pictures of them in Patricia's choir. I mean, what a amazing! Why do we not hear more about these absolute, like, icons, figureheads, heroes of our community? Like, again, this is maybe something I need to do. I don't know, but again, it's one of those things. Again, if something doesn't exist, you want it to exist, create it. There should be a page in my magazine called Community Hero of the Week, no more than a page. And we should be writing about these people. It shouldn't just be like musicians or wealthy architects or whatever. It's like, I mean, how have I never come across? And then anyway, so long story short, so Jamelia being just clearly just a heroic human being, the response back is essentially, well, how about my whole choir? So, long story short, I make the approach, can they sing? Turns out last week, again, I didn't know this, all of last week, and I believe this week, is the New Brunswick Music Festival. Again, I hadn't heard about this. No one had told me. Again, but I mean, why would they? Again, only ran the only magazine in the province, but literally no one tells you anything. It's insane. Like, basically, there's hardly anything in the magazine that we have been, everything we have to dig for. It's bizarre. People, anyway, so I hadn't heard about this music festival. Anyway, so there's this huge choir festival. All the school choirs. I mean, again, if people knew about this, we would all be flocking to watch it. So I go and watch the choir on Thursday night, sing what we landed on 2 songs. Again, Patricia Gallagher says how they recently sung We Believe in Miracles, and I talk a lot about miracles, think a lot about miracles. My old English teacher, Mrs. Murphy, who passed, used to talk to me about believing in miracles. And so, oh my God, I couldn't, it was like so, like fortuitous, it was meant to be. Okay, you know what, it's 7 a.m. I've got to go and wake River up because he's got to get to school early for a full run through of his Frozen Junior musical that's happening this weekend. So excited. I'm going to see it 4 times, actually. I'm seeing it 3 times in here in Rossay and once in Fredericton next week as part of Drama Fest. Okay, I'll be right back. His room is literally right under here, so don't go away. I'll be less than 30 seconds. Just got to go make him up. Thanks very much. Bye. I mean, not bye. Stay there. I'm coming back. Okay, I'm back. Okay, it's very exciting. My son, the thespian. He gets so annoyed when I do that. Pulling out all the old Uncle Monty lines from Withnell and I. And I think that's what put my other son off. My other son did a great job in Matilda Junior, the musical, and I was so proud. But I think I banging on about, like, my son, the thespian, treading the boards. Makes them so. Anyway, but then that said, as all of you know, my son Hunter did a phenomenal job opening for me, roasting me on Saturday night. I'll read out some of the roasts in a minute. Anyway, back onto the Saint John Choir. On Thursday night before the Long Bay gig, right before it, I shot over to the school to watch them do We Believe in Miracles, Blew Me Away, and Oh Canada, which we all sang together, which incidentally, if you were there Saturday night, you would have experienced this. Basically, the big surprise for those that weren't there was that I do the whole show, and then I talk about in the show never getting to sing "Oh Canada" at a citizenship ceremony, and then I say let's sing "Oh Canada" together. The whole audience stands up, and then boom, the curtain opens, and there is 100-piece, beautiful choir. Incidentally, Patricia Gallagher's Saint John High School Choir won 6 golds the day before at the New Brunswick Music Festival. Phenomenal. This, I mean, literally is a world-class choir, and I'm somewhat devastated that more of us didn't know that all these choir shows were going on. Maybe we're not supposed to know. Maybe they are supposed to be private. I don't know, but my goodness, absolutely. Because I asked when I turned up on the Friday, I think, to meet with my lovely sister-in-law Judy and the team from Centre for Youth, and we discovered that the choir festival was on, we weren't allowed in there. So maybe you're not allowed in. But anyway, and I asked to see if they had there was no schedule. Oddly, it's interesting. Maybe it's the wonderful thing about maybe it's all done telepathically. I don't know. So I'm not distracted. I did 8 days without chocolate last week, and I cracked on Sunday. But I guess, again, it was like 8 days without booze as well, so it's possibly the connection. And then Sunday, so anyway, thanks to everyone that came. Hunter did a great job roasting me. So St. John Choir, go and see me if you can. The big surprise was that I want to apologise. When singing "Oh Canada," I was not doing my usual full-on pacing, but I was moving around waving a flag. And my mother-in-law, Wilhelmina, love you, Wilhelmina, and thank you for informing me that you're not supposed to move or walk around when singing "Oh Canada." It's supposed to be standing still. So, I mean, God bless all of 700 people for not booing me off stage or sending me horrible messages. But I am tremendously sorry, and I did not mean to disrespect the Canadian national anthem in that way. I can't believe 11 years in, I'm still learning things because I'm an absolute idiot. Okay, bits of paper. Hunter's roast jokes. One of the ones, this was quite funny. We talked about me and the sausage breakfast wraps and them making me fart. My stupid eyebrows. Apparently, I look like a cross between Bert the Muppet and Eugene Levy. He also slagged Elon Musk off, which was good. My accent screams UK, but my jokes scream giant tiger clearance bin. He left London for Canada because Brits had heard enough. They say, oh, this is to me is perfect comedy. Okay, we go. They say my dad is one of Canada's hardest working comedians, but that only means that he's willing to drive 8 hours to bomb in a curling ring. Massive laugh, obviously. In Miramachi, massive laugh to 10 people. Massive laugh. Boom. And as I said when I came out on stage, I've got nothing as good as that. And I would say that is possibly true. Okay, well, I had a lovely chat with Ethan Ash yesterday. Our Yip Cider shows for this summer are on sale now. We're adding some Hampton Brewing Company shows. Also possibly adding an outdoor show at Crab Mountain Inn. I'm going to try and make that happen. If you have any other venues that you'd like to see me anything at, let me know. I will say I've just learned about something, which I'm writing an article about it for the next issue of the mag called Under the Spire, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous cathedral, I believe, or certainly church in PEI. Montague? I don't know. I've got the article here. I'm halfway through it. Let me open it up. It's already open. Kensington, PEI. Under the Spire is a summer concert series in a magnificent heritage church in idyllic rural Prince Edward Island. Basically, the famed PEI architect William Critchlow Harris took his inspiration from the inside of a violin. The acoustics in this French Gothic building have gained an international reputation. All the greats have performed there. Jeremy Dutcher, Joel Plaskett, Misha Brooke-Gosman-Lee, David Miles, The Once. And they do this incredible... I hadn't heard of it before. I performed at a church in PEI called in Belfast, I think. Anyway, I'm writing about it for the mag, but I'm also praying I get to perform there. I am currently working on confirming some shows in PEI this summer near St. Peter's Bay in early August. I got to go, so I got to get River some breakfast to make sure he's had. I've started trying to show River the first season of 24. Do you remember when that came out and how it was like the greatest show ever? And it's so weird. Obviously, I sound like, oh man, how dated it looks now. But it's so weird. Like, the stuff that Jack Bauer's dealing with his daughter Kim, similar teenage things now. But obviously, Kiefer Sutherland looks like a baby in it. Your Friends and Neighbours with John Hamm continues to be vaguely entertaining. Hacks season 4, it's getting great reviews, but it's weird now. Some things just seem to get great reviews. I feel like there's more glowing reviews now for stuff. And maybe it's because celebrities are doing less interviews, so people need to suck up more and lie more. MobLand on Paramount Plus. I mean, I love The Mob. I love British gangsters. I love Irish gangsters. I love Helen Mirren. I love Pierce Brosnan. The two of them deliver two of the worst performances and worst Irish accents ever. Makes Tom Hanks's Irish accent in Far and Away sound like Colm Meaney, or Colin Farrell, or however Brendan Gleeson. Is he Irish? If he's not, that's going to make me look stupid. Things get... MobLand said the only accurate review of MobLand was in the Irish Times. Diabolical. Love Tom Hardy. Ronan Bennett, who wrote Irish, a Northern Irish author, writer, creator of Top Boy, one of the greatest shows of all time. Jez Butterworth, one of the greatest playwrights. Guy Ritchie, one of my favourite directors. And then yet somehow MobLand is absolute diarrhea. Don't get me wrong, I can't stop watching it, but it's awful. And that said, Tom Hardy is the king of... I know everyone loves Tom Hardy. I have to say, I never feel I'm watching anything other than Tom Hardy being Tom Hardy. Even in Legend, the Cray movie, when he played both Crays, to me it was just Tom Hardy and Tom Hardy doing that thing he does. I mean, obviously you can't see my face right now, but that thing he does, he just does that thing with his lip, or he just whispers, because he thinks that if he whispers, it's very, very threatening. You will do what I ask, and if you don't do what I ask, I will probably stick you with it. You will regret it very, very. To me, Tom Hardy makes acting look very easy. If everyone could just do what everyone can do it. I don't get it, but we don't all get everything. There's plenty of people. They're not listening. They wouldn't be listening to this, but there's a lot of people out there. I know this because they keep posting and tagging me. That don't get why anyone would ever come to one of my shows. But again, I don't go online and tag Tom Hardy. And also, he wouldn't give a shit because he's a multimillionaire. I am not. It's weird when you have no success and people still want to try and slag you off just because you do a job that it puts you out there. But they don't have to watch you. Maybe it's annoying when my videos show up in their feeds. Maybe that's it. And the Facebooks does that. And I guess if I posted nothing and didn't read, if I wasn't on social media, I would never know if someone's slagging me off. Anyway, Tom Hardy's also in Havoc, which is, of course, by the amazing Welsh director. Oh, jeez, his name escapes me now. Luke, Matt, who's behind The Raid, basically, one of the greatest action movies of all time. Havoc is weird because it's like a bargain basement plot. But I haven't quite got to halfway through yet, so I haven't quite got to all the violence and the actual havoc. And so it's number 1 on Netflix. And Tom Hardy does the worst American accent in world history. It's like it's the British revenge for Don Cheadle's accent in Ocean's 11. And we can't use Dick Van Dyke's as an example of shitty accents anymore because of that wonderful Coldplay video. I'm going to see Coldplay this summer, by the way. I'm going to Toronto for 3 things this summer. Coldplay. I'm back on the Mary Berg show this summer. I'm actually coming up, got a chat with them next week about things we're going to talk about. Okay, I think we're done. I watched Juror number 2, the Clint Eastwood possibly said it's his last movie. A movie that Warner Brothers buried. Clint Eastwood had a falling out with the studio head of Warner Brothers, and they buried this movie. And it got really good reviews, although it feels like people only gave it good reviews because it's Clint and because they didn't like the fact it got buried. It is, it's good. Nicholas Holt's in it. He's the guy who's on a jury and then discovers that he was the guy that hit and ran the person who was murdered. So the guy who is on trial isn't the guy what done it because he'd done it. Basically feels like an 80s VHS renter, like a presumed innocent. Or there's a great one called Shattered. I always remember it had a great twist. I need to rewatch that, so I'm going to rewatch. Let's every week. Hey, recommend great movies that you rented on VHS in the 80s or 90s, and don't no noughties, 80s 90s only. Shattered with Tom Berenger and Deborah. Anyway, that was really good. Well, that's it. Thanks for this. Oh no, so Sunday, the Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. fight. Oh my goodness. Some people call this a cash-in. Some of you may know that Conor Benn, the original Conor Benn, Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank famously had a huge rivalry. There were 2 fighters who, when I was growing up, they were the British fighters. In it was November 1990. So I would have been 78, 88. I was 12. I remember this fight. Massive. Nigel Benn was like 26. I think Chris Eubank was a bit younger. Nigel Benn's from London. Chris Eubank's from Brighton. Massive rivalry. They were both like the best. I think they both fought at like middleweight and super middleweight. And basically they had this fight, which was just colossal. I believe Eubank won. Eubank would then defend the title 3 times. Nigel Benn actually, I think, Eubank actually hit him with an uppercut in round 11 of their second or third, and Nigel Benn was in. Oh, this was quite funny that there was 3 rematches. Anyway, the rematch happened, and this is quite funny that Don King wrote into the contract that not only would the winner had to join his stable. It's funny actually, the rematch, which was one of the biggest fights ever at that point, was I had it on DVD. I remember it was in Old Trafford, which is Man United Stadium. 42,000 people. Funny how now 42,000 is tiny. Like, I mean, for example, maybe how many were on Saturday night at their son? The point is, their sons fought with their dads in the corner. Their sons fought on Saturday night. But when you think that for Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois, Wembley Stadium was like 80,000, 90,000 people. Anyway, Don King stipulated that not only the winner but also the loser had to join his stable of fighters. Incredibly, in the rematch, it was a draw. Someone had Eubank. It was so close that it was literally a draw. Don King hadn't written the event of a draw into the contract, so as a result, neither fighter was contractually bound to join. That's nice, isn't it? Anyway, so Eubank's son, Chris Eubank Jr., and Benn's son, Conor Benn, fought on Saturday night at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. And the elder men were in the son's corners for the fight. Lots of people called it just kind of like it wasn't an exhibition match, but they called it kind of like, because it's two famous people. Anyway, it was a blistering fight, absolutely phenomenal. Everyone has eaten their words and said, we were wrong. This is a proper old school fight. No running around, no fighting for points, just a straight up war, a slugfest. Respect and love. Yeah, I mean, it's just like absolutely unbelievable. And I think it boils down to the fact that both men weren't fighting for pride; they were fighting for their father's respect, and that is everything. Chris Eubank Jr. is like he's 35 and he won, but it wasn't a clear win. Like, Conor Benn has a lot to be proud of. Although I imagine how more. It's funny, isn't it? How I get one gets down after a gig or gets down after whatever. Imagine how down you get after losing a fight you spent years. Well, also this fight was supposed to happen like two years ago, but Conor Benn was tested positive for something. Okay, you know what? I'm going to let you all go. It's been an hour. I've got to go get a river breakfast. My shows with Ali Hassan at the Saint John Youth Orchestra are taking place on the 9th of June, the 10th of June, the 11th of June, the 12th of June. I should point out, Saint John Youth Orchestra has tons of other great stuff coming up. Dial M for Murder in May. The Tempest at the, I believe the Tempest is going to be, is that at the outdoor place? Port thingy in Saint John. That's in July. I've never made it to one of those outdoor plays, and I've heard they are phenomenal. Thank you for listening. Send me your questions to James. I'm just gonna stop using that vanity email, the comedy@jamesmanager.com one, because those emails can disappear. So just take my personal email. If you've listened now to this podcast, then you're one of me. You're one of me. You're one of mine. We love each other, don't we? Well, I certainly love you all. Thank you very much for listening. I've been James Manager. I'll see you next week. jamesmanager@gmail.com. Thank you all very much for coming out to the show. And if you want anything, any recommendations, email me anytime, jamesmanager@gmail.com. And I will say, nice to see you, wonderful Heidi White on Saturday night. And Trish, I'm mentioning you too, because you know how much I love you. And I will point out that despite the fact that you didn't send me a question, because that's why Heidi gets mentioned so often, because she very kindly sends me questions. Send me a question for next week, Trish. Love you, and hats off to Glenn, the gentleman who I saw running out of the show on Saturday night at the end to get the car. So Trish and Heidi's lovely girlfriend, didn't have to get wet in the rain. God bless you, Glenn. We need more people like you in this world. I've been James Manager. Have a great rest of week and weekend and Monday, Tuesday next week, and I'll see you next Wednesday for episode 54 of Manager's Weekly Ramble. God bless.
Manager's Weekly Ramble.